then you kind of lose who you are. If your job is to kind of freely point out that these people suck and you find out that maybe they don't, you might lose an audience. You might you might end up like if you're going and I've seen it on your show when you veer.
I've lost audience. Before many times, and I don't care. I care because it'd be great if it didn't.
The fireworks that exploded on Bill Maher's podcast Asterisk will astound you. Imagine this: Club Random star Greg Gutfeld, a provocateur in his own right, and Bill Maher, frequently seen as a voice of reason, squared up over the contentious issue of cancel culture versus awake culture. It was like lighting a match in a room full of dynamite completely combustible. Maher contends that awakened culture might have gone too far, fostering an atmosphere in which individuals are reluctant to express their opinions.
Us was about, and then some of them, I watched Rain Man again. I thought it held up pretty well. But again, you couldn't make it because, like he says the R word a million times. That kind of stuff. We're like in kindergarten now, where we have to say pee-pee and poo-poo and R word. And
Animal House. I think Animal House still holds up, but you could not do that movie, especially in the nightclub scene. When do you mind if we dance with your dates? That whole thing would never happen. It would never happen. That's the first time I ever saw breasts.
It's every movie. It's every movie.
Yeah.
It's I mean, any movie made even 10 years ago, and there's something there that if you really examine who you are, you probably are not offended at all. We all laughed at this stuff and it wasn't terribly, we know when something's terribly offensive. But when you hear it now in 2023, you hunch up because not because of it itself, but because the reaction it will cause.
Yes.
You're going to have to listen to people bitching about this and posturing and pretending they're so offended and it's so terrible. And that's what's going to be so.
And they're not. That's the thing. They're not offended.
Well,
they're not. No one's really offended, I think.
Well,
because you can, when you say.
People are offended and some things are offensive.
Yeah, I mean, but it's kind of like when I said, you Google people who are dead. When you're offensive, if you just waited 10 seconds.
You'll be riveted to your seat as these two titans square off. But if you want programming that questions the status quo and keeps things honest, click the subscribe button. Meanwhile, Gutfeld doesn't hold back when exposing the hypocrisy and hollow posturing of political correctness. I'll wait, everything is set, welcome aboard, and let's get back to how it all happened. Two of the most prominent political commentators, Bill Maher and Greg Gutfeld, sat down for what was meant to be another episode of Asterisk Club Random Star. However, this wasn't your usual episode. Rather, it evolved into a full-throttle debate that erupted into a conflict between ideologies and authenticity. At the center of their heated discussion was woke culture and its impact on freedom of expression. The mayor began by voicing a concern that many people have but rarely acknowledge. He fears alienating his audience by not completely supporting every progressive notion that is floating around.
If your job is to kind of freely point out that these people suck and you find out that maybe they don't, you might lose an audience. You might you might end up if you're going and I've seen it on your show when you veer.
I've lost audience. Before many times, and I don't care. I care because it'd be great if it didn't happen. But my real bond with my audience is that I never pull a punch.
Yeah.
And I never. I have lost people who were think I'm conservative now, and I have not changed, I don't think, at all.
No.
I think the politics has changed and the people have changed. But I don't think that it makes me a conservative to, think things that are crazy are crazy.
Yeah.
And forcing me to say so doesn't help.
Yeah.
There's just too much forced conformity.
Yeah.
And there's no thinking out loud.
Yeah.
That's not allowed.
It's like walking a tightrope. One mistake and you're out.
Here, I can exert some kind of power, get somebody to apologize. it feels good. It feels good if I can get 1,000 retweets that Bill Maher said this and what an asshole and then like it happens. It's like, but your life doesn't change. My life doesn't change by doing that, but I feel like I did something. And I think that's been driving a lot of this shit.
The phone made people assholes.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
It allows you to just be so fucking cowardly, anonymous, shady, fake, all these shitty qualities it brought out in people.
Yeah.
So the fact that I was always seen as kind of a cynic about humans, I think, oh, it's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it turns out that they are really, humans are not good people.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know. Well, we're definitely sinners.
Precisely, but Gutfeld refused to listen to him. He essentially challenged Maher, claiming that author authenticity should take precedence above the desire for popularity, highlighting the necessity to overcome the fear of public backlash. According to Gutfeld, the woke mob is more about displaying power than it is about genuine outrage. They are like puppeteers manipulating social media, making users dance for a few likes and retweets.
It's a bathroom wall, so you can write things on it and not be held accountable. It's.
But it has repercussions, and a bathroom wall doesn't.
Yeah, it does. It destroys
all
careers.
All you do is go in there and roll your eyes because you're reading.
Do you remember that girl that made that joke who, before she was leaving to fly to South Africa?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and she said, "I hope I don't get AIDS." That's a joke about America. And about how we don't care about, and I remember that was the first Twitter.
Yeah.
I think it's the first cancel culture moment.
I mean, if they haven't made a movie about it, they should.
Yeah.
Because by the time she got off the plane, her life was over.
There were people at the airport waiting for her because it felt so good to get somebody. And, I can't remember her name, but I don't like what happened to her. I'm going to Google her when we're done.
No, there used to be, if something like that happened, I think there was this allowance for someone to then go, oh, fuck, okay, you got me. It was a brain fart. I'm sorry, you're right. That was a shitty thing to do. And that was that.
Yeah.
And that should be all that because what I hate is the bad faith of people who know that this person isn't a horrible person, but I'm going to wreck your life anyway. Because of this one misstep and not a hanging offense.
Yeah.
Especially if you own it. But with these people, it's never good enough.
Yeah. I would say that.
Just like blood.
I would say that I was guilty of that, though. Like, in the beginning, it's when somebody.
And the pyrotechnics didn't end there. They immediately jumped into the subject of comedy censorship, which is something that both of them are all too familiar with. Gutfeld attacked the limitations on humor, comparing them to snipping the wings that allow comedy to be truly funny. It's similar to kindergarten, except that everyone is a self-appointed vigilant with hashtags, and the playground is Twitter. Watching Bill Maher struggle with his own inconsistencies during the talk is intriguing. He is renowned for his razor-sharp wit and unreserved opinions, but here he was struggling with the exact qualities that have distinguished him as a comedy great.
The majority of the years that I've done real time from the same studio at CBS here in Hollywood, 20 years, the first, I would say, at least 15, I was probably fighting with the audience, at least once a show. It was very rare I had an audience that didn't like ooh and ah something. Then somebody did some, part of it was the pandemic. We had to get a smaller audience.
Right.
And so somehow they knew how to get rid of just the groaners.
Yeah.
And so we stuck with it even after the pandemic ended and we could have as many as we want now. But I was like, no, I'd much rather have this half filled, but they're the good people who they can laugh at both sides.
Right.
They cheer both things. They cheer common sense.
Yeah.
However, there he was acknowledging that public opinion did affect him, and he told Gutfeld how the audience's assessment of him can occasionally leave him feeling confused.
And it's not their best. Everything that's going on right now in our lives is based on people taking the worst intention.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter if you're a conservative and you don't like liberals, you will take the worst example of a liberal, and a liberal will take the worst example of a conservative, and they both are almost identical. Like the squad is the same as whoever you want to call on the conservative side. They're exactly the same.
There is a lot of that.
Yeah, and it's
I mean,
and the thing is, it's really funny when I make fun of like Ilhan Omar, and then she'll say something that I agree with, and I'm like
what?
she was pretty good. That's a good question. There were two things that she said. She was pissed off about what was going on in Palestine, not Palestine, but Palestine.
Oh,
and, yeah.
I'm glad
It wasn't Palestine.
I was.
But she was talking about but there were some other things that she said that I thought were like, wow, that's pretty libertarian, because generally she's kind of scary, but like maybe she's not as bad as I think she is. But what happens if you start feeling that way about everybody? Then you kind of lose who you.
Gutfeld remained unmoved and made his point clear, claiming that Maya's own fear was also fostering the very culture he condemns by skirting these topics. You know, saying anything unexpected could instantly get you labeled a conservative like that. Maya is essentially confirming the outrage he feels because it's a twisted cycle, isn't it? Gutfeld didn't hold back when he called out the mayor for what he perceived to be inconsistency. But let's look more closely at Gutfeld. He painted a picture of a society losing its backbone and giving in to virtual mobs instead of standing for the truth even when it's uncomfortable. The mayor's internal conflict was evident in these moments. He spent decades breaking molds and is now trapped in a culture that is all about erecting walls, or social cages, if you will, but is also aware of the stakes. He acknowledged that it's a danger he doesn't want to take again and pointed out how easily audiences can turn against him, just as they have in the past when he has strayed from the socially accepted path and lost supporters. Gutfeld, on the other hand, was certain that authenticity cannot be compromised in order to pacify what he perceives to be phony indignation. According to him, the true problem is not upsetting anyone. Rather, it is about feigning that the offense is always real, and giving into that just serves to maintain the culture of fear and conformity. The difference between the two became even more apparent as their conversation progressed. The mayor seemed cautious and occasionally conflicted as he attempted to negotiate a world that required him to strike a balance between audience expectations and the truth. However, Gutfeld was unreservedly aggressive, advocating for a society that valued honesty above all else. It was a clash of ideologies wrapped in humor, sarcasm, and some hard truths. Norms are like shackles, making the whole issue of intentions worse than it really is. Just when you thought things couldn't get any more intense, their conversation turned to politics. The mayor, attempting to balance his criticisms of both the left and the right, found himself caught in the middle. Gutfeld, the critic, pointed out the irony of how some defend the indefensible just to stay on the right side of the woke-approved line. It was a conversation that many people needed to hear, a reminder that freedom of speech isn't just about words, but about having the courage to speak them no matter who is listening. It may have been Gutfeld hitting all the pressure points that made Maher squirm, or it may have been just two opinionated men analyzing the absurdities of the world. In any case, do you think Gutfeld hit the mark, or is Maher correct in his cautious approach? I would love to know what you think. Leave a remark below, and let's begin this discussion.